Hello and welcome to my channel. If you are new here, welcome back. If you're a returning guest, my name is Brittany and I give my stupid opinion on books that I've read. I use the cawpile method, which was created by G over at Book Roast, to review all of the books that I've read. And so today we're talking about Cherish by Tracy Wolff. This is the final book in the Crave series, and yes, I read the entire Crave series. It's like a CW show where I can't look away even if I want to. So here we go. We are talking about the epic conclusion of the Crave series. 3 months ago, Grace and her band of friends took down Cyrus, and they've known 3 months of peace. For Grace, you know, where the biggest worry is, what homework assignment do I have due next? Which is wild to me, and I don't know how it's possible considering one of Grace's best friends is dying of a poison that has no known cure. But that's me. I wouldn't be able to know peace if I knew one of my friends was dying, but Grace, she's cool as a cucumber living her best life with Hudson in San Diego. The vampire court has no king, the dragon court has no heart, and the gargoyle court is stuck relying on Grace, a freshly 18-year-old who is the queen and has no fucking idea how to rule. Love that for them. The timing, of course, is the worst possible because the crone still wants a favor from Grace and she's come to collect. The circle's failing and Grace and the gang are like on the precipice of a battle between paranormals and humans, and the humans are like paranormal hunters who are being like led by the crone. It's super chaotic and crazy. This book takes place largely in the Shadow Realm, which is where Grace goes to make a deal with the Shadow Queen to save Mackay. This time, instead of it just being Grace and Hudson in the Shadow Realm, we have everybody going there to make a deal with the Shadow Queen to save Mackay. Hudson kind of has this secret that he's keeping from everybody, including Grace, and it's very yucky. Everybody's life is like hanging in the balance because what kind of YA fantasy would this be if everybody wasn't on the precipice of death? So basically we are trying to get some sort of cure to save Mackay, and we are battling humans in the process. Here we go. Let's get into it. That is the best that I can do, okay? There is so much that happens in this whole saga of books that's literally the best I can do. If you haven't read up until this point, I wouldn't recommend that you watch this video because what I just said is all spoilers. Anyway, let's get into it. The characters, as always, I wouldn't have continued the series if I didn't like the characters. Somehow, I feel connected to them and I don't know how to explain it. I think that they could use some work, of course. For example, when I think about like my own teen self, the amount of times Grace thinks about Hudson's oceanic blue eyes seems a little outrageous to me. I think that each of the main characters in the group that we're following is lovable in their own unique way. But like I said, there is room for growth. The characters are compulsively readable and I don't know how to explain it other than that. Something about them is like addictive. One of the other problems that I had with the characters is that there are just so many to keep track of. When we're in the Shadow Realm, again, I don't know who some of the characters are that we're talking about because you only experience them like very briefly in the last book. The 5th book, which I'm blanking on right now. I couldn't remember who they were because there are just so many characters. The main characters like Grace and Hudson and Flint and Jackson and Macy and Mackay, those ones are all a main character, but somehow none of them give main character energy. So for that, you know, we got a 7 out of 10 for the characters. For atmosphere, we have a fantasy set in the real world, which is great because that means that the world building is not very complicated. There is a system of paranormals being ruled under monarchies, which is cool, but also the monarchies are kind of democratic in nature in that we kind of vote on things, and my brain can't grasp that. What I did grasp is that each of the monarchies within each faction of paranormals is very oppressive, especially the vampires. It makes for a very tense atmosphere, which is overall very enjoyable to me. What's not so enjoyable is the insufferable amount of pining and angst that like goes on, especially when we have members of factions who are supposed to be ruling their factions. Grace, please stop pining over Hudson. You are mated to him. You don't have to pine over him anymore. Just get on with ruling and running the gargoyle court. And Hudson, just abdicate the throne and everything can be fine. We don't have to sit here and be angsty about it, and it's not hard to communicate with our partner, especially if I'm led to believe that y'all fell in love so fast. You know what I'm saying? Those are my qualms. Atmosphere is a 7. I kind of struggle to picture things, but this is fine. It's YA. The writing. This writing, I would say, is on par with the rest of the series. It's decent enough. Grace's internal monologuing kind of got old for me very fast. And out of all of the books, I think that I appreciated the 5th one the most, simply because it gave me a break from Grace's incessant complaining. In the 5th book, we have both Hudson and Grace's points of view. This one is strictly told from Grace's point of view. I just couldn't. Like, I felt like I just kept reading over and over and over again about how Hudson wasn't communicating with her, and I just wanted to scream, talk. Communicate with each other. If they just talked to each other instead of around each other, the writing could have improved immensely. That's just my opinion. I gave the rating a 7 out of 10. All right, so the plot. Grace is set to ascend the gargoyle throne, and Hudson is set to abdicate the vampire throne, which is cool. Jackson has absolutely no interest in ascending to any sort of position of power within any of the courts whatsoever, and I feel like he doesn't really fit in anywhere anymore because he's now this hybrid vampire dragon. I just really couldn't follow the plot that much. It felt literally so boring in this book compared to the rest of the series. This book did not need to be its own book, and it did not need to be as long as it was. It was as long as all of the other books, but literally nothing happens. If you watched any of my vlogs regarding the Crave series, one thing that I would keep track of is how often all hell broke loose in this series. And in this book, it only happened twice. And it's like a 600-page book. I was really expecting for something more notable to happen than the gang looking for this antidote to cure Mackay. It very much felt like we didn't receive the epic conclusion that we were supposed to. And honestly, for all that happened, we could have just tacked it on to the end of the 4th book and called it a day. There was no need for all of this. So plot gets a 5 for me. It was just so very boring in comparison to the rest of the series. Intrigue. Boring. Boring. More boring. The lack of communication, the lack of plot, everything about this book just was to me. I wasn't invested in reading, and it took me a long time to get through this. I can blaze through a YA so quickly, like a day or two. This one took me like 5 days to get through. I picked up my phone and would scroll instead of reading, and I would do anything other than pick this book up. So much so that when my hold came through for the Matthew Perry memoir, I prioritized reading that over this book. It wasn't great. 5 for Intrigue. And then Logic. We have, I mean, it was fine. Nothing really to complain about, but also nothing really to write home about. The communication issue within this book really, for me, executes not sound logic on the parts of Grace and Hudson, because if you are trying to paint them as this couple who has no secrets, why all of a sudden are they not communicating with each other? Grace and Hudson built this really, really great relationship in the 5th book, and then for it to so seriously regress in this book, I felt like that made no sense to me. They would tell each other literally every tiny thing, and then to blatantly go to ignoring the fact that someone was hiding something and Grace not being like, what is going on? It was kind of insulting to me as a reader, if I'm honest. Logic gets a 7. And then Enjoyment, despite all of the complaining that I've done in this review, I did manage to enjoy some parts of this book. The resolution was annoying. The fact that mating is supposed to be rare, and yet we come out of this series with at least 3 mated couples, really annoyed me. But it's YA, it's decent. It's a CW show that I couldn't look away from, and so I gave the Enjoyment a 7 out of 10, which brings my totals to 45 out of 70, 6.43 average, and a 3.25 star in total, which is a little bit above what I would have thought considering the rest of the series I rated 3, but my system for reviewing has revamped quite a lot since I started this channel. If you've read any of the Crave books, let's talk about it in the comments down below. Please feel free to subscribe to this channel if you're not already. Leave me a like, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.